Welcome to Cause and Effect. Now, the cannabis industry in Canada is gearing up for the legalization of recreational marijuana later this year. Governments across the country continue to roll out their plans. Health Canada is going with proposed strict rules on packaging. With those kind of restrictions, our guest says Canada is blowing an opportunity. He says marijuana could be the biggest consumer product launch in history. We're joined by Tony Chapman. It's great to see you, Tony.
Thanks for having me.
You think this could be a huge product for Canada, a huge international product?
Well, the United States alone, it's a $57 billion business. 87% of it's illegal because only 8 states have made recreational marijuana legal and 28 or so medical. So if Canada's got first mover advantage for the next couple of years, can you imagine instead of 10 provinces and 3 territories all trying to figure this out in our typical chaos called Canada, we had a national strategy from agriculture to the manufacturing to the science to getting patents to retail to branding. Real purposeful, creative, scientific jobs. Set it up in Canada, and every time they legalize in the States, guess what? We move in and turn it into an incredible export market for Canada.
Meanwhile, the Liberals have appointed a former cop to spearhead the process, and he told us this week, I'm not here to promote cannabis.
Yeah, he's not here to promote it, but we're now letting the underworld walk around with 30 grams, which is legal, and grow 2 pot plants. Well, what's to stop him from using Uber technology to crowdsource and get 2 plants per person suddenly as a grow-up? And each plant's capable of producing $2,000 worth of street-valued marijuana. So we're not playing smart marketing. I'm not for legalization, but if you're going to do it, unleash the private sector. And, you know, if you're in Forest Hill, have the high-end cannabis in the lower markets. I would take streets and towns and say, hey, you want to build tourism? Create a walking promenade and allow cafes in there. Americans come up, they sample, they see Canadian brands, the Canadian experience. What are you going to do in franchise when you start opening up your market? It's a ready-made opportunity. Illegal cannabis in the States is bigger than McDonald's and Starbucks combined. We're not talking about a small little, oh, we've come up with a new grain cereal. We're talking about a ready-made market. People are looking for it. They're going to want organic. They want different provenance. They're going to want medical marijuana. So much opportunity.
And it's not just smoking joints. It's edibles, it's vaping, it's oil.
It's the medical science that goes with it. It talks about pain relief. It talks about getting off of opioids. It's all the different elements that if we had a national strategy we could invest in and really grow it. And again, it's not just for the Canadian market. What else are we going to export? Our oil's landlocked. We're having trouble selling our trees now because of the trade deal. This is something we could really become the McDonald's or Starbucks of the global economy. And that is something with our agriculture and our distribution, all the challenge and complexity of our market we master here becomes globally exportable. It could be a real growth industry for a country that's starving and desperate for new growth in our economy.
I mean, a couple of governments seem to be on board. New Brunswick is promoting the industry. BC has said, we want to have our artisanal or our small growers protected. We have a big industry here. So not every politician is kind of prohibitive on
But
this.
again, that's my point. It's all slice and dice. Like, so I'm a manufacturer trying to get some scale, and oh, well, I got to. Quebec wants it this way, and Ontario wants it this way, and BC wants. We're only 36 million people. There should be a national strategy and say one set of rules. And this concept of branding. And again, I'm not for it, but if you're going to do it, why not let the artistic community come out and create brands that can eventually become global? No, we're going to sell it in plastic bags behind the shelf for the organized crime. The best the FDA has thrown at these guys, the best, have turned it into a $57 billion industry in the States. So they are not walking away just because the government's saying we're legalizing it. They've got brands, they've got strategies for getting you on a pot and to trade you up into other drugs. They're using that as a gateway selling strategy. You want to beat them back, I have to tell you, it's the private sector, not the government, that's going to allow you to do it.
And you make the point that in some places in Canada, maybe a third of the market is illegal cigarettes.
It's illegal cigarettes, just like you're saying. And again, the tax base, you start getting thirsty for those taxes, the sin taxes every budget. Every time you create that delta, what happens? It moves to counterfeit. LCBO is a monopoly because you can't grow scotch. Right? You know, but
it's hard to make.
It's hard to make. I mean, it's hard to go out and get a great bottle of wine if you're making your basement. Your friends have all shoved that down your throat. But when it comes to illegal cigarettes and illegal marijuana, it's not a difficult market. It already exists. So you're going to go after them. You've got to be very aggressive. And again, going after not kids hanging around a street corner, a $57 billion organized crime marketplace that are very intelligent. They've got gummies, they've got edibles, they've got branding, they've got packaging, they've got distribution, and now we've sort of relaxed the rules in Canada.
They've signed up with the Trailer Park Boys, one company has, another has brought in members of the Tragically Hip. Gene Simmons is apparently sniffing around. He's a chief evangelist officer at an outfit called Invictus. But it sounds like the celebrity endorsements will be very limited.
It'll be limited again because you can't have, you're going to operate it under these rules. You know, the LCBO or the cannabis stores want to control their own storefronts and stuff. I think the boomer alone, if Amazon decides to get serious with their Whole Food brand and come in with a whole food cannabis, will more than pay for their acquisition costs. That's how big the business is, because the boomers are going to want to know, what's the efficacy? Is it organic? How's it treated? All of this is market dynamics, meeting unmet needs. That's what capitalists do. They determine what are the unmet needs, how do we fill that vacuum with branding, positioning, science, packaging, deliverables. And when you've got a $60 million business already waiting for you, the opportunity, a massive missed opportunity, one of the biggest hairballs I've seen our government cough up yet.
I mean, oof, there's an image. I mean, some of the Canadian cannabis companies, as you know, they're doing deals with Germany, Australia, Israel. So the industry is trying to think global.
They are trying to think global, but use this as our petri dish. National, 36 million people. We've nailed it. We've just found a new patent for a tablet that releases over 24 hours. We got a new thing for medication. We own the patents on it. We can market that around the world. But if you can't do it when you're trying to organize and juggle 10 provinces and 3 territories, it's just not smart go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, now I think about it, maybe it would have been logical for the Atlantic provinces to say, hey, we're going to do this together.
They should. And talking to tourism and everything else, next thing you know, they've got a growth market, investment, capital pouring. It's a great idea. If the Atlantic provinces is listening, get together, turn the private sector loose, and you watch what happens in terms of how that can elevate that, and not just for people coming in, again, creating here, exporting them out.
And you make an interesting point as well. It will be attractive to many people to have stuff that's been properly checked for pesticide and fentanyl and goodness knows what.
Absolutely. We're going to want it. But again, there's this sense of the branding efficacy. You know, here's one. I don't want to have the THC side. I want to relax. I want to do this. I want to do that. That's packaging. Packaging is not there to seduce kids. Packaging is to tell you what is the efficacy in the brand.
That's interesting, Tony. That's a fresh angle on this thing, that it could be a wasted national opportunity. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Tony Chapman.